Hello, and welcome back to my show about, it's really difficult. Well, let me put it this way. I am going to convey some sort of feeling or information through this channel. It's really quite a concrete thing. I'm not entirely certain how to articulate it, but, in the end, my goal with this series of I don't know if it's not intended to be ASMR, it's sort of just a recording of me saying what I want to say about various things. First off, I thank you for continuing to watch. This is part 3 of a series. It's going to be many parts, hopefully. I mean, I got a very positive reaction from my first 2 videos. I left off, I left off describing my time in not the mental institution this time, it was a behavioral health clinic. At that time, I had the idea that what I was experiencing was something called total neurological control, where my brain could control the glands in my body. I didn't know what they were because what I was doing is I was feeling something inside of myself. After I went through EMDR, there was a moment where I was dying on the inside. I was so filled with emotion and sorrow and distress that I just rolled around on the floor for a little while, just not screaming, but you get the picture. And I didn't know how to handle my, what do you call it, experiences. I used EMDR to understand myself, and this had probably been brewing in my head for quite some time. I've always thought about things. I think about things a lot. And I have a lot of things to say. But most of the time I don't really get the chance to say it because there's a certain kind of glazed over look when I try to explain to people the technicalities of some kind of thing, subject. I apologize, I'm playing around with a little plastic albuterol inhaler, which is what I'm taking to reduce my asthma. I have asthma, I used to have asthma, I still do, sort of. And if you were wondering and didn't recognize this song already, this is Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. I don't know who is performing it. I found this in my background music folder from when I created a RPG using RPG Maker, which, if you know anything about games, it's like almost anything created with RPG Maker screams amateur. Like the moment you see that a game is made using RPG Maker, it's an instant no unless it's reliably good, which is not true for most RPG Maker games. And most RPG Maker games are sold, no, they're not sold, they're given away, they're freeware. And some of them can be pretty interesting. If you ever want to find a good source of free, good enough games where you might find a hidden gem somewhere, go on itch.io and look up RPG Maker games. There's going to be a lot of them that are free and actually pretty good. But I have trouble enjoying RPGs nowadays because I hate dungeon crawling and grinding. Dungeon crawling and grinding are very boring and difficult. Not difficult, but more like you're doing work. I hate dungeon crawling. I hate grinding. Anyways, that's enough for an intro. Now on to my story. We're back to my story. I went to the behavioral health clinic. When I got out, I tried texting the girl who I had texted before and got my phone takeaway over. And she was like, "Nah, I ain't gonna touch you." Yeah, I was like, "Give me another chance." And she said, "No." I mean, she was okay as far as personality, looks, the whole package. But, I don't know. I'm not going to tell you her name, but just, I don't know. And at this point, I was in the beginning of my writing career. Not career, I've written 13 books, plus 2 ghostwritten books, and a bunch of scrap projects that cumulatively come to about 1.2 million words written. Oh, look at that. The second movement of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata has just started playing. Anyways, I don't know if this is... Yeah, second movements are usually bright and chipper, and I think this is a trio. Is this a trio? I don't know. Anyways, I started writing when I was 15 or 16, and it was because my mother, she just said, "You gotta do something besides play video games all day long." And I was like, "I don't really have to." And she was like, "Yeah, you do." And I sort of just decided that I would start writing, and I wrote my first book, my first story. It wasn't a book. It was only like 10,000 words. It was about a girl who could read minds, and how she read minds was through interpreting a abstract geometrical 3D landscape of colors and shapes. And it was very weird because I would describe the shapes and the colorful things, and this is what I was seeing at the time. Or this was before I understood that seeing these shapes is how humans can visualize other people and their own psyche, and like, I don't know. There's a lot of stories about manipulating psychic energies and metaphysical surgery. I believe, I have been led to believe, that there is a therapeutic process that can be termed metaphysical surgery, where someone sends their spirit or their soul, or maybe just extends their telepathic sensitivity to another person and manipulates their personality, aura, and memories. Exactly. Here we go. This is movement 3. If it's a little bit too loud, I'll turn it down in the post. But, anyway, so, wow, this is exciting. I can't really get relaxed to this, if you know what I'm saying. Anyways, because my view on this subject went from seeing people's auras to realizing that I can manipulate them. I can, I can see someone's sadness, their sorrows, their pain, and I can do something like sort of a mental manipulation, so to speak, of that aura. And I want other people to do it, and I want to somehow clinically test my hypothesis that there is a way of delivering therapeutic change that involves manipulating metaphysical properties that surround someone, or metaphysical surgery. Everyone has a different aura. It always looks different, but I haven't really seen any results because I haven't really gone deep. I've only messed with the surface of people's auras, because I don't really want to go too deep into someone's aura without their permission, without knowing what will happen, because I'm exploring an unknown world, and the only landmarks I have are feelings that maybe this represents happiness, maybe this represents a trauma of some sort. So if anyone wants to volunteer for a metaphysical surgery session, then you can just contact me. We can set up Skype or some other video conferencing system, and I can attempt to metaphysically manipulate your aura, although I don't guarantee a positive effect. In fact, I caution that I may cause a negative effect in your psyche, but if you want to be my guinea pig, go ahead. I don't even know if it works yet. I don't even know if I'm completely delusional about this. I really don't know. All I want to know is if I can get people to help me and willingly consent to metaphysical surgery, because that's what this is. And I don't know if you need anesthesia. I don't know if you'll experience emotional pain while I'm digging through your psyche. Another thing that I want to discuss is telepathy. I have experienced telepathy before. I was in the inpatient facility, and there was this guy he was named after a U.S. state, and I talked to him in my mind with the intention of telepathically broadcasting into his head, and I achieved it. When I asked him what he was hallucinating, he said, "I'm hallucinating your voice in my head." And I thought, well, that's strange, because I've been deliberately attempting to broadcast my voice into your head. And I had not told him anything about this. Previously, I had met them that day. He didn't know me. I didn't know him. And I communicated to him. And so here's how you know if you successfully connected to someone telepathically. They'll shake their head really quickly, like, no. Like, it's a very subtle thing, but if you contact someone telepathically, they'll shake their head very slightly. And if you try to get someone to willingly and knowingly participate in some experiment about telepathy or mind reading, they won't want to do it. Not because they can consciously decide this is strange, I don't like it, but because there is a barrier in people's minds that makes them uncomfortable and skittish when they approach something that's too directly contradictory to their way of experiencing life. You know, they'll shut down. And I want someone to experiment with, to metaphysically perform surgery on them, to telepathically broadcast thoughts and images and words into their mind. Another thing, I can bring people into the metaphysical universe that I'm going to describe in this video and others. If anyone wants to come up to Mount Olympus with me or visit my shop in metaphysical space, go ahead. I have done this before. I have taught someone how to come up. And this girl, she was black. This was also at the inpatient facility, because crazy people are a little bit more receptive to this kind of thing. A lot more, actually. And I took her up there, and she commented, "Wow, the mountains and the sky are so beautiful." We were in an inpatient facility. There were no mountains or sky anywhere, not even in pictures on the wall. And I told her, "What else do you see?" And she said, "I see a hot guy," which I think was Hephaestus, because Hephaestus is probably black. Probably. And then I took her on a journey through Mount Olympus, and I sort of grabbed her hand metaphysically. I didn't touch her in real life, and like teleported her. In metaphysical reality, I can move really fast because I've practiced and I know what I'm doing. I basically moved her really fast through Mount Olympus, blowing up several buildings on the way, but that's beside the point. And she said, "I don't like fast travel." And then, here's the strange part, when I came down, and when she came down, she didn't say anything else about it, and acted as if it had never happened. And I was like, yeah, makes a lot of sense. So, some were just passing me by. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. People don't hear the song starting again. People don't want to remember these things. People don't want to experience these things. There's a barrier. Anyways, I'll start talking about how I climbed the ladder to Mount Olympus and the metaphysical universe. So, about a year after my first incarceration, not incarceration, it wasn't for a felony, it was just for a. Anyways, after my first stint in an inpatient facility, though this one was a behavioral health clinic for kids and adolescents, because I was 17 and not an adult yet, I had another episode where numbers started having very interesting qualities to them. Like if I looked at the number 1, I could see so much stuff that, like dimensions and particality and wave-particle duality and how 0 turns into 1. I'll explain to you. Okay, so 0 is not a 0, it's a phone. 0 is a phone. And the closer you get to 1, the finer and more relativistic. I'll spend the rest of the video describing the number line. Alright, so you have 0. 0 is a little, not a black hole, like a white hole that's full of foam, and it kind of spirals out of the 0. And as you approach 1, you reach a cosmic number, a universal constant that I don't think anyone has discovered yet, but it's the universal constant of beingness, or rather, the number. It's about 0.881, as far as I can tell. That you can probably figure this out with math, but the 0.881 is the moment where nothing becomes something, where 0 gets close enough to 1 where it becomes solid and not nothing. Anything before that is just an abstraction or a label of a chaotic jumble of fuzz, of metaphysical fuzz. Anyways, as you go from 1 to 2, you travel along a line, and that line splits into a right angle and several other angles. So 2 is the number of angles. It breaks the 1, which is a line, into a sort of claw of angles, and then you reach 3. The E is somewhere in there, but that E, which is the universal constant E, is somewhere in there, but it's not very important for counting. It's important for things like calculus, but E is not important for counting. The next number is 3.31. The point where, okay, so when 2 reaches 3, 3 sort of achieves gravity and binds towards itself to become a sphere, but it's not a complete sphere because its gravity is not complete yet. So 3.31 is where 3.31 is where the gravity of numbers and reality turns into solid. So it goes, 1 is nothing, foam. At 8.81 it turns into something, a line. At 3.31 it turns into a solid. And then there is no 4. 4 does not exist. 4 is a non-number. It is, once you reach 3, and as you get towards 4, you head towards an infinite valley, a tangent, and the tangent's line is exactly 4.01. At 4.01, plus a whole bunch of change, because quantum physically numbers are always shifting against each other, so you can't get more accurate than 2 decimal points. So at 4.01, numbers stop because the 3 trying to get to 4 heads so far south down the tangential canyon that it wraps back around and comes back up. So that's the tangent. 4 is a non-existent number that exists in the space between the end of 3 and the beginning of 4.02. So the The four weights, or rather the four cargo, 4 gathers like crystals around it once it reaches 4.01, and it gathers a little bit of diamondness. It's like raw ore, and it sort of floats through this abyssal plane until it reaches 5, and 5, it's at 5.00000. I have said there was no precision to this system, but 5 is the only number that is always up to about 190 decimal points. It's 0, so past that it's uncertain. And 5 is like gold. 5 is an unreactive number. 5 is a very unreactive number. It does not like to react. That's why splitting 10 into 5 and then 5 into... See, you can't even think of it properly. Half of 5 is 2.5, 2.3, you know. The more you split 5 and the more you react it, like 5 hangs on to the edge of any number that it's in. 5 is very unreactive. It doesn't like to react. It doesn't like to react. That's why 5 over 2 is very hard to conceptualize, because 5 is a very unreactive number. It doesn't like being split. It doesn't like being... Well, it likes being doubled and tripled and multiplied. It loves being multiplied. 5 loves being multiplied. That's why it's so easy to multiply by 5, but it's very hard to divide 5 in half. You don't split 5, you keep 5. So 5 sort of manifest, you leave 5. Anything past 5, like 5.001, that was my vocalization of 90 zeros, is not 5. It's 6 minus 90, whatever. And you go through this abyssal plane, and you reach 6. And 6 is the beginning of motion. 6 is very slippery. 6 is easy to split into 3 and 3. It slides off of itself. It doesn't like being 6. It's it likes splitting into 3 and 3. But it's kind of, it's very slimy because it's made of 3 and 3, because factors influence the properties of their numbers. So 3, 2, and 1 are factors of 6. So 6 is like motion, the beginning of motion of life. 3 is a spheroid that is becoming gravitational, and 2 is the beginning of motion. So 6 is like this. It's a beginning of the motion of material, and then coalesces into 7, which is a bright, shining diamond. It's very beautiful, but it's covered in sludge. There's like an Eiffel Tower of sludge that covers 7, but when you get past that sludge, there's this not golden, but it's shiny, bright diamond. And it'll stop at 8 because this number system is base 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 8, 2, 8, 3, 8, 4, 8, 5, 8, 6, 8, 7, 8. 1 bait, which is by 8. So bait 1, bait 2, bait 3, bait 4, bait. And all of these numbers have very specific properties. So 8. 8 is the 1, 0. In base 8, 8 is represented by 1, 0. And 64 is 100. So, yeah. And I'm probably not going to go all the way up the chart. You can go higher and higher, and it gets complicated and complicated. And they build on each other, and they're very hard to parcel out, but... Anyways, so 8 is a doorway to another dimension, the 2D plane. And trust me, this has significance, because the higher you go on this number line, the easier it is to connect to the metaphysical universe. This is the climbing method. Anyways, I'm sure you guys are bored of listening to me go on and on about numbers, but this was seriously very interesting to me. I drew a whole bunch of pictures. I talked about this to everybody, and it was very interesting. I really liked numbers. So I'm just gonna let Beethoven's Moonlight let's not finish up here and subscribe, like. If you want to hear more numbers, tell me. If you just want me to get on with this story, tell me. Thank you and goodbye.